I kind of expected to maybe lose one team at SHR. I never expected to lose them all.
Yeah.
Um, I expected to still have a home and to be able to race and to do the things that we've done the last 10 and a half years. And I never expected to lose them all. And like you said, there was 300 people that were really mad.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What a race! California's Kevin Harvick does it. Tree making right there. You're the man.
Welcome to Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour, presented by NASCAR on Fox. And today we have my old friend Rodney Childers here in the studio. We figured it was good time for you to come in the studio and answer all the hard-hitting questions, since you've decided that you're going to go in a different direction and still be crew chiefing and go over to Spire Motorsports and do everything that you're going to do. So we thought it would be a good time to come in. So thanks for taking the time today. I know it's leading into your off week, and sounds like you've got an adventure planned.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot planned for the off week.
What's that like? I think, we had Brad in here a few weeks ago, and you mentioned that Stewart-Haas Racing is actually going to shut down for a week. And Brad had talked about just the morale and things that go with the guys in the garage, and how it would be better to just say everybody had to shut the shops down for a week. How do you feel about that?
I think it's good. I mean, everybody's kind of on a different schedule, whether it's the shop guys, the road guys, the engineers, they work 24/7, it seems like. So just being able to kind of shut it off, I think is good, just to spend some time with family, reset, and get ready for this last push before the playoffs.
When you go back to Indy this last weekend, and I know you guys didn't have the weekend that you wanted to have, but just explain to people the difference of going to the Indy Oval and the Indy Road Course. Obviously, they know by now that I'm not a huge fan of the Indy Road Course. And I think for me, it's because of the fact that I grew up a kid wanting to race at the Indy 500. And really, I grew up around the Mears gang in Bakersfield, California. So everything we did revolved around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Now, you didn't grow up an Indy 500 fan, but I'm sure you watched the Indy 500 and understood the everything that came with the Brickyard. So what's that place like for you to go into? And obviously we had some great success there together, and we're able to experience Victory Lane, but explain your feelings towards Indy.
Yeah, I mean, I was like you. I watched the Indy 500 every year as a kid. And then, of course, the first Brickyard 400. And then your first Brickyard 400 win. Like all of those, I mean, I was racing, but I was watching all those every single year. And, all those big races meant a lot to me. And, I just dreamed to be in there one day. So when I finally got the opportunity to go there with a cup team, it was just crazy. Like when they sang the national anthem, I remember the first time I was there in '03. It was just unbelievable. Like the amount of people that was there was just crazy. And, those are the memories I have. And it was a real struggle for me to go to the road course. I just didn't get the same vibe the whole weekend. I didn't get chill bumps during the national anthem, all those things. So to go back this year and to be back on the oval, and we were just looking forward to going for 3 in a row, and to experience that with you and to win 2 in a row was just a great feeling, and we were super excited to go back.
You realize we forgot to kiss the bricks the last year.
Well, you did. We actually went out there and did it while you were doing something else.
Oh, great. I was the only one that didn't show up for the picture, but it was weird during that time.
It was really weird. They told us that we couldn't do it, and we just did it anyway.
Yeah. And I think I've talked about the COVID year because I view that as one of our best years that we had in the 10 that we did at Stewart-Haas Racing. And I think when I go back and I look at Darlington and I look at how awkward it was just driving to the racetrack and doing all the things that we did that year, but that year really changed the sport and the direction of how we functioned and how we practiced. And I think that when you take all that a step back and you take all that into consideration, you really realize the impact that it continues to have on our sport today. And I think practice, for me was always hard to get used to. But I think at that particular time with the car that we were racing, it didn't matter if we practiced or not. How has that changed the flow of the shop since COVID? And then you add in the next gen car. How has that time changed what you do as a crew chief and the preparation and the things that you have to do compared to what you did 5 years ago?
I mean, honestly, every single thing is different. You think about those years back then of, going in there and, spending time on qualifying trim and having all these extra parts for the car for just qualifying trim for just Fridays. And then you would take all those parts off and get it ready for race trim on Saturday. Well, all that's gone. But then talking about the car, a lot of my weeks was spent in the body shop or in body hanging or all kinds of different stuff on the pull down. And now all that stuff's gone too. So, you're really just spending time with the guys and talking about shocks and springs and setups and spending more time with your engineers and with your car chief and just maximizing everything that you can. And it's a different kind of racing. And honestly, it's taken me 2 years to kind of get used to it. But I feel like, now that the group is used to it, we've got a different attitude about it, and we're not so down about the car anymore and all those things. And it has become the new normal.
Right.
And some of it I still don't like, but I deal with it. And but like I said, I mean, once it becomes the normal, you have to accept it, or you'll get left behind.
We had Josh on last week, and I kind of explained to him the process that we went through in being able to pick Josh, and how Stewart Haas Racing came to us and said, "Hey, who do you guys want?" and really valued our opinion, and that's how we wound up with Josh Berry going in that car, basically because he was the one that we wanted to drive the car. What's that been like for you after going through, 10 years basically of our relationship and starting a team at Stewart Haas Racing? And then all of a sudden you got a new driver going in there into the seat. And I know it's weird with me sitting here, but how have you gone through that process of being able to say, okay, I got to get away from what Kevin liked and figure out how to get to what Josh likes? And where has he kind of fit the mold of the things that we used to do from a setup standpoint? And what has been the biggest differences that you've had to kind of go in a different direction to fit his driving style?
Yeah, and for me, I look back on all of it now, and I didn't realize how screwed up I was that last year when you were quitting until it was all said and done. Until we started the next season with somebody else, I realized like how messed up I was the whole year before, and just trying to get through it and all those things. But with Josh, it was kind of a natural fit. Just being a late model racer, it was extremely easy to carry on conversations and to talk about things. And I think it helped a lot, going and racing the late model last fall and kind of getting that started. The rest of it, has been a learning curve for sure. It's been extremely easy to work with him on certain things. The first few intermediate tracks we went to, we weren't great, and which we weren't great the year before either. So, trying to figure out what worked for him. His driving style is a little bit different than what yours was, but our good tracks have still been our good tracks. Richmond, Darlington, all the places that we were really good last year, we're still good, this year. And then we were able to make some other tracks that we weren't good last year better again. So, we've had ups and downs for sure. We struggled at the beginning of the year to try to get our qualifying effort better, and we've done that, and got better. And how that snowballs, having a good pit stall and having track position, all those things. The rest of it has been smooth. He's got along well with the team, and I think at the very beginning of the year, some of that was, the team was so used to having you there and they believed in you. And a lot of the guys didn't know who Josh Berry was. They weren't hard, nosed late model racers. They had not kept up with his career. And it almost took like 6, 7 races for some of them to realize just how good he was and accept him for what he was. And The rest of it, has just it's been pretty easy. We have kind of got off track the last couple of weeks and not got good finishes, but we can definitely get it back going. We're looking forward to going back to Richmond where we're really strong there in the spring and hopefully maybe win a race before these playoffs start.
So you go through a new driver, and then you get, I don't know, however many weeks into the season, and they, all the chatter starts about shutting down the team. And for me, I was mad when all the news actually came out because of the way that it all went, and just kind of the way that things were handled. And you feel like, you put in all this time over 10 years to build something, and then all of a sudden it's just not run very well, and then it gets shut down, and you're in the middle of it. I couldn't imagine being in the middle of it, because I would have been just completely flipped upside down. You know how I am about stuff like that when you have things that could have been prevented happen. So you go through a new driver, you go through the transition, and now you got all this stuff about shutting the team down. And how in the world have you kept everybody together to keep them going in the same direction? And how is that going to be for the rest of the year?
Yeah, and I kind of expected to maybe lose one team at SHR. I never expected to lose them all.
Yeah.
I expected to still have a home and to be able to race and to do the things that we've done the last 10 and a half years. And I never expected to lose them all. And like you said, there was 300 people that were really mad, and it took a week to get over that and to kind of refocus. And the rest of it has really just been the kind of humans that are on the four car. And that. Like, I mean, it's just been incredible to see the support for one another. It's truly a family. And, it seems like, there's a lot of different ways it could have went. And every single week we have open and honest conversations every Tuesday morning with the whole group of what everybody has going on, what they're working on, where they're thinking. We have conversations about whether we think it's the right thing for that person or the wrong thing for that person. And we honestly had a lot of conversations on where could we take the whole group. And the realistic part of that is that's not a very good option, right? I mean, it's just not going to happen. So the whole group has just been outstanding at all of it. It's hard to say how it'll be later in the year. I think,
You only have 14 weeks left.
yeah, there's not long to go, right? And, I felt like after my announcement, it was a little awkward for a couple of days, honestly. And, I felt really bad for Josh because I know he wanted me to go with him. And, it's just everybody has to figure out what's right for them at that time of their life and what's right for their family. And, sometimes it doesn't work out. And, all of us have been racing together for a long time. So we want to have each other's backs and we'll always be friends. As like the guys that I lost over the winter last year, I was pretty bummed out in the beginning, but I still talk to them every week this year.
Yeah.
And it's part of it. It's the way the sport goes. And, for us, we really want to win a race with Josh. We want to, show that he can do it. And I think we already have, but you know how it is. You want to win a race and you want to go and spray beer and champagne and do all those things. So we're working really hard for that, trying to give him the best cars we can and just trying to make sure that he knows that we have his back. Even though we might not be together next year, I'm always going to be friends with him and have his back through thick and thin. So, hopefully we can continue that.
So you're going to Spire Motorsports. What went into that decision? And just, I think it caught a lot of people off guard that you wound up there. I don't know that anybody said he's going to wind up there. I think a lot of people just assumed that you would just go wherever Josh Berry went. Kind of give us some background on how all that came about and you wound up as crew chief of the 7 car.
Yeah, right after Stuart Haas made their announcement, I felt so fortunate those next 7 days. I mean, I talked to everybody in the garage, like every team reached out. And I just felt so blessed and fortunate that these people were reaching out. And I'm like, I have a chance to go there. I have a chance to go there. And I talked to all of them. And, I think, after you do the things that you and I did together and win 37 races together, your goal is to maybe end up at Hendrick one day, or to end up at Gibbs one day, or end up at Trackhouse or one of these big teams. And it seemed like it after that first week, it just wasn't going anywhere. I had conversations with different people, and it just wasn't going there. And everybody would kind of say, well, we might have something in 3 or 4 months, or we might not. And, um, I talked to, like I said, a lot of different people, and the deal with Spire come about. And right off the get go, they looked across the table and looked me in the eyes and said, we really want you to be here. We know how much difference that you can make. We want you to help build this thing into something special. And it kind of reminded me when we went to the 4 car, like I was going to have a huge say, and honestly just be busy and work my butt off. I would much rather do that. And it really just come down to a lot of different scenarios. But I didn't want to wait around until there wasn't anything.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to lose everything I've worked for either. And, we talked about it as a family, and the more we talked about it, the more the boys got excited about it. And now they're driving me crazy every day because they want to go over there and work on trucks. So, we'll see where it goes, and hopefully have fun with it.
Well, I think you're going to make a huge impact there, obviously. And I think when you look back to Stewart Haas Racing, I guess it would have been 2013, kind of hit or miss on the things that they were doing at that particular time. Now, I would call it a year that I was trying to get you to commit to being the crew chief. Is that fair? Would you say it was a year?
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, so I went through this process with Rodney of trying to recruit him to come be the crew chief of the 4 car, and he was very reluctant with some certain things that eventually were probably the best things that ever happened to me in my career, because he was honest and told me, he's like, look, I'm not going to be yelled at on the radio. I don't want a bunch of drama. I want the story to be about fast cars and winning races. And ultimately, that's what we did. Tell everybody kind of about the recruiting process that I went through, because if I tell it, it'll be my story. It won't be yours.
Yeah, gosh, it went on for quite some time. It was so many different conversations, and Lord, I can't hardly remember all of them anymore. I do remember hopping on a golf cart with you and going to the ice cream shop in Dover, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, Rodney's on the golf cart with Kevin. He must be going over there." But nobody knew what we were really headed to at that time. So, it was just a lot of different things, and like you said, and my mind kept changing too. I didn't know what was right. I had a great relationship going at Michael Waltrip Racing, and my relationship with Toyota at the time was, you couldn't have made it any better. I had the head people from all over the world texting me every week, and just thinking about that relationship. And
now, did you know, not to interrupt you, but did you know at that particular time that the team was kind of in a bad spot at Michael Waltrip's?
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't. And I had pretty much in my head committed to going with you, and then we went to Loudon and won that race with Vickers, and I was walking out of the garage, and I told Katrina, I was like, "There's no way I can leave this." I've built all this stuff, and so it was up and down, and it was just like this year. Lord, there's been a lot of up and down trying to figure out what's going to be the right thing for me, and thankfully I made the right choice in 2013 and went on to win a championship that first year in a lot of races, and obviously gained a lot of friends along the way, and in that 4 team. So, it's just, you hate that all this is going on, really. But you look at all the teams throughout NASCAR's history that have went through things like that, and I feel like I've been part of too many of them, with the Evernham deal and the Waltrip deal, and then now the Stewart Haas deal. But, I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, and we get through it, and we move on.
What'd you have when you got to the 4 car? You walked in the shop the first day.
We didn't have anything. Going
when
back,
he says anything, he means not one nut or bolt.
We didn't have anything. We didn't have a single jack stand for our team, any benches, any jacks, anything. So um, it was fun. That's what really made it what it was. Is I got to just take advantage of all that stuff, and we were kind of laughing about that the other day because the Spire deal. They have alliance with Hendrick, and we were kind of reminiscing over some of that and going to the chassis shop over there and going over there at nighttime and looking at Kenny's cars and deciding, if we build the chassis exactly like Kenny's on the five or we do this or that a little bit different. And, we had specialty chassis for everything. We had Martinsville cars, we had Phoenix cars, we had intermediate cars and super speedway cars. Like we just took advantage of everything that you could take advantage of. And I think we had so much fun at that it's hard to race the next gen cars the way we
Yeah.
do now just because there was so much to it back then.
Yeah, and I think when you look at that time in the beginning, I think we all had something to prove at that particular point. Like I didn't want to leave RCR and not be successful, and I think for me, I sold my house, I closed my business, we moved to Charlotte, got a new crew chief, we got a new team, we had new sponsors, we had everything was new, and really that thing fired right out of the gate, and when we went there, Gene and Toto are basically like, just do whatever you want. Okay. And not once did they really ever talk about costs. We never talked about money. It was always about just build me something that can win. And I think when we went to that first test in 2013, they had a NASCAR test that was, hey, we're going to come up with some new rules. And we'd start at the back and we'd drive all the way to the front. We'd start at the front and drive off for straightaway. I think everybody knew at that particular point that they were in for a handful as far as what we had built. But we went through some interesting times at the beginning of that year because our cars were so fast that everything that happened was in the spotlight. But I think that was probably good for us to go through those times because at the end of that year we had been through pretty much everything that you could go through, and then we were winning the key races and winning in the key moments, and I think it built a lot of character in that team that just kind of created this unity. I don't know that it built more unity than it did after Phoenix when we all spent a week together in Las Vegas, half drunk for the week. But that was definitely the best victory celebration when we ordered all the Budweisers and they brought them in with the sparklers into the club, and everybody in the club got a free Budweiser. But it just a lot of just fantastic memories for me personally. It was really gratifying because not only did we become good friends, but we had a lot of success. When you go back, let's go back to the beginning, because I always find that it's interesting when a driver becomes a crew chief. When was that time for you to say, okay, I'm done driving, I got to make a living at this, and I'm going to be a crew chief?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think looking back on it, a lot of the turning points was when Dale Senior got killed, Kenny Irwin got killed, Adam Petty got killed. Um, a lot of that stuff started stacking up on me there for a while, and I can remember,
Stacking up mentally.
yeah, mentally of, that my goal was always be a race car driver, and then these people started getting killed. And for me, I had a hard time with that. And finally, I was just like, I remember like screaming at home one day, I'm done, I'm done, I'm done. And but it was hard for me to accept, how emotional I am. And I raced every weekend against Adam Petty. And I think that one probably hit me the most. And during that time, there was a lot of problems with carburetor linkage, and then I was running the all-pro car, and two different people that year, their carburetor linkage got hung up, and neither one of those guys got to race again. So there was just a lot stacking up, and then the rest of it was just I wasn't going anywhere. It all went so fast for a long period of time. I was winning everything that I went and did, and then it just kind of shut off. My whole career, my parents never had to pay for anything that I did. They bought my first go-kart, and then after that, they would buy me a helmet every now and then. And maybe a new suit every 2 years or something like that. And then it finally got to the point that I had to go ask my dad to pay for tires on a Hooters Pro Cup car. And then I would give him back any purse that we won. And that killed me to ask him for that. And, I never really got to repay him for that. And just, it just started eating me alive, honestly. I still lived at home. I was trying to save every dime I had and all those things. And then I finally met Katrina, and I'm like, I want to have a family sometime. I want to have kids sometime. I want to have my own house. And then honestly, one of my good friends just told me I was crazy if I didn't go work on a cup team. He had been on one for 3 years, and he's like, "You have no idea how fast you're going to move up the ladder compared to some of these guys that work on these cars." And he was right. I went to work as the new guy, and
Where?
it was at Jasper Motorsports on the 77 car with Dave Blaney. And actually, Booty was the guy that hired me. He hired me as a road guy, and it wasn't 6 months. I don't know, 7 months. I went from the new guy to being the car chief, and then and 2.5 years into cup racing, I was a crew chief, and it's just all blown by since then. I've learned a lot. I think the things that really stood out was when Ray hired me to start that 10 team. It was the same situation as the 4 car. There was an empty shop, and that was it. And here I am, a new crew chief that hasn't, dealt with a lot of different things, and he threw me in there to the wolves and let me have at it. And without that experience, I don't think I would have been able to start the 4 car like I did. So, um, just a lot of different things that happened through those years of, like you said, more of it was probably mental than anything. But it was time to move on and to figure out my own path.
What was your favorite race that you won as a driver?
Um, I don't know. I mean, really the
Or raced in?
well, I have to say, winning stock medium at the Municipal Stadium in Daytona in '96 was the biggest thing you could have ever done. There was 300 and I think 18 entries in one class, and I qualified like fifth and just destroyed them in the race. And if you could win that race, you could win anything. That was the biggest class all the time. I went on to win a national championship that year in that class, um, and then the late model stock races, probably winning that fall brawl race in '98 at Hickory was a big one. I was wanting to win the one at the beach the next week and the one at Kenley the next week, and led the most laps in all three of them and didn't finish it out. But um, those go-kart days are hard to beat, and you've been through that. It's just like what we did back then and the amount of competition there was, how good you really had to be was crazy. So, there's a lot of good memories and all that.
What about Cup? What during our time?
The
What was the
boys,
favorite one?
yeah, the boys ask me that all the time, and I still tell them the first Brickyard 400, and they just think I'm crazy. They said, "Was it not Homestead when you won the championship?" I said, "That doesn't count as winning
Yeah.
the race. Like that's not winning the race. That's winning the championship. If you ask me like which championship meant the most, that one, because it's the only one." But obviously the winning the championship at Homestead's a thing that stands out the most, but it's not the race that stands out the most. Going to the Brickyard and qualifying on the pole and like leading the whole race and just being dominant and kissing the bricks and climbing the fence. That's the biggest race I've ever won. Um, so, I mean, you kept telling me that the Daytona 500 is bigger than that and is more fun than that. So hopefully one day I can get that accomplished. But, the Brickyard is just so special.
Yeah, I think when you look at the Brickyard, it's obviously a special place to win at. I think for me, I think when you go back, and I think it's the very first one. I think when you look back at Phoenix, the amount of relief that came with that very first win and just winning so early with the team, I just felt like that got us off onto the right foot in the right direction and just immediately got rid of all the naysayers of shouldn't have done this or you need to do that. And yeah, we went through some hiccups here and there through the first half of that season, but I just think if you don't win at that particular time, it just it doesn't become as easy as it became that year because of all the questions that would be asked. I think when I go back and I look at all that stuff and I look at the way that we built the team and the things that went into all that, it's just what you work your whole career for, to be able to put yourself in a position like that, and whether it was you or me or anybody on that team. And it was just it was a time where you just didn't really realize what you had until you got a couple months into that. And I think that first win kind of put everybody off into the right direction. And from that point, we felt like we could overcome just about anything, even if we. And I tell Caitlin and Mamba this all the time. Even if you break down 6 weeks in a row, but if you're the fastest car, you truly believe that you're going to be just fine, because you have that speed that goes with everything. And we just had that speed. And I think one of my all-time favorite stories that came out of all those moments while we were on the Hendrick days was when Dale Jr. and was it Jeff or Jimmy that went to Nashville to do that test in the winter?
Yeah, I can't remember which one.
I don't remember, but
yeah,
Dale Jr. would call me and he'd be like, "Hey man, what steering box? How big is your steering wheel?" And they were going through everything that we had, literally trying to figure out why those cars went so fast. And it's like you said, I mean, it was everything that we had, because we had the keys to anything we wanted. And we had wind tunnels, we had engines, and the Hendrick engine shop and the Hendrick chassis shop were right there to support everything that we did at Stewart-Haas. So it was just, it was a pretty awesome 10 years. I appreciate everything that you and everybody else did at that particular time. I still hate the fact that it's where it is at Stewart-Haas Racing, but I think that's for a different day. So the one question that we always ask on here, we always want to know what your first street vehicle that you drove was.
I heard that. I heard this last week when I was listening. I was like, "Oh Lord!" Mine was actually a Cavalier Z24, and
what in the hell is a Cavalier Z?
It was this little 2-door car that was a front wheel drive, and it got handed down from my brother.
Okay.
My dad, being a car salesman, he always ended up with some used car that somebody traded in, and he had bought it for my brother. And when it come time for me to get a car, he just gave me that one and got my brother a nicer car. And then
he'd earned his stripes.
He had earned his stripes. And a month into me having this Cavalier Z24, the air conditioner went out. And it stayed out for like 6 months. And all I remember was just completely burning up in this thing every day after school. But it was fun. You could lock the rear tires up with the e-brake and then spin the front tires, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, when you mentioned that with those front wheel drives like that, when they had that parking brake, we used to take it, and my dad, when I was 12, 13 years old, he'd just give us the keys to whatever we were driving. We used to take those front wheel drive cars and you put them in reverse and it become like a machine gun in the mud, and you could spray mud all over everybody as they were walking through the parking lot. So I do appreciate the e-brake and the front wheel drive cars. Yeah. Well, thanks for taking the time today. Have a great vacation. Good luck the rest of the year. Thanks for everything that you did for me. And I know there's 100 other things that we could talk about, but we'll do that. We'll do that at some other point. Once you're done with this part of the career, we'll get into the good stuff that happened this year. But good luck with the rest of the season.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
I want to thank Rodney Childers for taking the time to come in and tell some more stories. We'll go back and tell the good stories once he's done with his time at Stewart-Haas Racing. But we remind everybody that we're going to take a couple weeks off as well. So we'll be back after Richmond. Hope to see you then.